G'day, happy Friday for all of you guys in the US. It is my Saturday morning. And look, so this one is for anybody who's thinking about running the $497 SaaS Pro plan, because it really only applies to people looking at being able to sell sub-accounts through a self-serve product-led growth strategy. So if you are one of these people or interested in what the difference would look like for you by moving from $297 to $497 and going into something in which customers can acquire themselves through purchasing a SaaS sub-account through a checkout process, well then this video is for you. So this one is going to require you to strap in, get a coffee or a beer or a wine or whatever you like to drink and stay with me, right? So this is something that I'm offering as a snapshot. If you like this video and you want to see how you could employ some of these techniques yourself, you can get the snapshot. Just put a like and subscribe and then tell me in the comments, I've liked and subscribed, please send me the snapshot and I'll give you the link, right? So off we go. What on earth is a product-led growth strategy? If you are coming from agency land or you're thinking about deploying HighLevel in the world of SaaS, there's some fundamentals that you need to kind of get familiar with, and one of those is PLG or product-led growth, right? And in the context of a white-labeled system like HighLevel. Now, HighLevel has some limitations because they don't let you track all of the user behavior, right? But they have started to deploy, and if you saw my short earlier this week, the agency analytics is starting to really shift the ability to look at the usage and adoption of each sub-account, right? And so that is going to make it extremely powerful for those who are deploying SaaS to be able to acquire a large volume of customers and be able to kind of see what's happening in those sub-accounts and take some sort of action. Now, we need to programmatically take action. But before they can get to that point, they need to be onboarded. So this video, again, is all about the onboarding process, which is the critical time in which you need to have someone from free to paid. And if you're not running a trial, if they're paying, then you certainly want to get them fully adopted and engaged in all the aspects and all the features that you're selling as part of the package that they're buying. So how do you do that without a sales team? Well, we're going to talk about that. So stick with me. Right. So what is PLG? So product-led growth, it's a strategy that Hotjar, Slack, etc., all these types of organizations employ, right? It is why SaaS companies don't need to hire sales teams. It is why they get such high revenue multiples, because they create a flywheel effect, which is called a viral loop. And it's the positive feedback of someone's own usage of a product that grows the product either internally at a single account in the enterprise, or they go and tell them friends in the consumer space, like, I just use this, it's amazing, you should go and try it, blah, blah, blah. And then they can double incentivize that by offering affiliate discounts and things like that for referrals. So that's the viral loop, and that is the flywheel effect. And they don't need sales teams because the impact it makes on the person using the product itself is enough to satisfy the need, and it's more powerful from an advocacy point of view, because it's something that they've achieved on their own. It's not a salesperson going in and saying, it will do this if you do this. They're discovering the power on their own, and they're making the impact on their own. So I'll give you an example. If I'm a hairdresser and I have a hairdressing salon and I sign up to someone's HighLevel SaaS, and then I integrate my Google account, and then I respond to some fraudulent reviews through the mobile app, one click, bang, bang. And then I respond to some negative reviews. And I turn them around into positive advocates as a result of that. All of the attribution goes to the brand and the product that they're using, i.e. your brand. They're going to go and refer that to their other hairdresser salon people. They're probably going to talk about it to other business owners, because small business communities work like that, particularly in the local services side. So that's how that works, right? And it was their idea, and they're making the impact themselves by using a product. So, digressing a little bit, but let's move on. So, this model works on taking someone from sign up to extracting a share of wallet or an average contract value, which is, the terminology that we're going to use, right? So if you've got 3 plans, your average contract value is going to be somewhere in the middle, usually between, like, if you're saying $497, $297, $97, your average contract value is going to be somewhere in the middle of those 3 if you're selling all 3. And if you do your landing pages correctly, you're probably going to get most people hitting whatever the middle one is, and that's just normal consumer behavior, right? So how do we get them from sign up with a possible free trial to paid? Well, it's all to do with what level of adoption they have, and you could hire a sales team to run demonstrations and ensure that you hold their hand and sit with them and drive out to their office and do Google integration with them and Facebook integration with them and get their ads account set up and all that stuff, right? But nobody wants to do that because that costs a fortune, and so the cost of acquisition is too high. Cost of acquisition and distribution needs to be near zero for product-led growth to work and for SaaS metrics to make sense. Unless you're charging $100,000 a year, the cost of acquisition and an acquisition strategy that relies on sales teams that is that manual will not make sense, and your time to profitability, considering the cost of acquisition, will be years, right? And so when you add all those metrics together, when it is a low ticket, low subscription, the utility needs to be enough for them to basically onboard themselves. And so this is where this is going to come in. So we need to take them from free trial, get them highly adopted and engaged, and get them to realize the impact of using the tool, using the software, using the feature set and the functionality on the plan that they buy, for them to turn into advocates and then create the feedback loop and the flywheel. So a really good way to do this is to create an onboarding system in which they can engage with. So when someone signs up, they're taken to an education series, a step-by-step guide, a checklist, like all of these things, right? This is how we do it. This is where you need to click, which doesn't require human intervention. But in saying that, you want to be able to get a grasp on who is actively onboarding themselves, who is actively using the system, and that's going to tell you a number of actionable insights, like who is likely to convert from free to paid, who is likely to churn if they're already paying but not using it, right? And so what we've built today in this video, which I'm going to show you, is the beginnings of, from an onboarding point of view, that critical, those critical metrics around who's buying what and who's likely to succeed in giving us the most lifetime value and share of wallet of our average contract value, right? So we don't have a sales team. We employ customer success as a profit center. Customer success doesn't need to be involved in every single customer. If you ever signed up to something like Hotjar or Slack or whatever, right? When you start using the product in a certain way and you go from the free tier to the paid tier, that's when, you're in their application and you suddenly get a message from someone at customer success saying like, hey, I noticed blah, 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 right? Now, they're getting signals about your behavior in their application. They're seeing that you're using it. They're seeing you're adopting it. You're inviting additional people from your team. So then you become a mid-market account that is worth the human labor cost of them talking to you. Also, if they can do something to take someone who they see is likely to convert and they're not, they're always going to have an opportunity to reach out and say, if you haven't read the help articles and you haven't watched the videos on how to do all this, great. Well, we are still here. You can still book a time with us, blah, blah, blah. Right? So that's where we're going with this. Okay? So some of these are what they call North Star metrics. And essentially what that means is, the analogy is that everything you do drives one of these metrics in the direction you want it to drive in, right? So churn obviously is a downward direction, but then, things like daily active users and the cost of acquisition, one of them's up. Daily active users, we want up. Cost of acquisition, we want that down. Return on ad spend, we want that up. And then the conversion rate, we want up, right? So some of them need to be up, some of them need to be down, but you're always driving. So essentially you can kind of think of this as, if we're doing something that doesn't contribute to one of these metrics, we don't do it, right? So figure out what your North Star metrics are. These are classic SaaS business metrics, right? But they do apply, right? So here we go, right? So the CS team needs to be able to do a few things. And so from an onboarding point of view, in that critical time between free and paid, this is what we want to do. We want to say customer success needs to be able to identify who's bought what plan at a glance. We need to be able to do that. We want to be able to see what their usage is. And so if you watch Sean's latest video, go to the HighLevel thing, or just check my shorts, you'll see that they're going crazy on it, being able to do agency analytics. But we also want to see the usage of their onboarding process, right? And that's what we've got in this video. And then we say, like, who's at risk of churning, right? And so we want to be able to get a sense of that, and we create what we call an at-risk register. And then we've got to say, you know, if somebody's already in a trial, do we have any signals and data that's going to alert us to the fact that they're probably not going to convert from free to paid because of low adoption, they didn't get onboarded, they couldn't get their Google account integrated, whatever, right? So we want to be able to get a sense of that. So let's go. So that's it. This is what this session's all about. This is a deep one. It's a long one. If you do like this video, please like, subscribe. If you want the snapshot, ask me in the comments. I appreciate your time. And this is a sneak peek of some of the content I have in my upcoming course. So enjoy this one. It took me a long time to make this one, and I hope that you can see the value and the impact that it has if you're going to the $497 SaaS Pro plan on HighLevel. Cheers. All right, guys, so pen and paper ready because there is a lot to cover in this one. But I did do this today, step by step, and so I'm not going to build it in front of you because that would literally take 8 hours, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I built. And then, of course, it is available in a snapshot, right? So you're able to kind of use it if you want. Put in the comments of this video, I'd like the snapshot, and I'll send you the snapshot because I don't care. I don't need to sell it to you. You can have it if you want it. So anyway, I just did this for my friend. I'm doing his part of his SaaS build out recently. His name's Brandon, and he has a company called Brand on Marketing. So we've been doing it here. So he's got SaaS, right? So let's have a look. So if we go to the agency view, he's got his SaaS configurator, right? So there we've got 3 plans: basic, advanced, and premium. So we're going to have a checkout page. So he's going to be driving traffic to the checkout page through inbound, outbound, whatever. Someone's going to buy either basic, advanced, or premium. And so if we are truly being software as a service, you know, which means that the ability to have, you know, very low fulfillment, very cost of distribution, the cost of acquisition needs to be low enough so that we can be repaid in profitability in kind of like month 3. The way to do that, of course, is to drive adoption and engagement in the product itself, okay? Because we're not doing this as a done-for-you situation, right? We're selling some tools, some utilities, right? So it's extremely important that adoption and engagement levels are high inside the product. And the way to track that, right, is one is the analytics through the sub-accounts, right? So the first thing you would do is you would have your customer success and activations teams know who's on what plan. And if these people are on these plans, you know, how many contacts have they added, how many users, you know, how many calls they made, et cetera, et cetera. So that level of activity is going to be extremely indicative of how much adoption and engagement in the product they currently have. And of course, you can go into certainly more detailed reports beyond that. But the other thing is that the gap, right? So between purchasing and actually starting to use the feature set, this is the most critical time in a product-led growth strategy, is how you enable them to onboard themselves without the need for a sales team and through, you know, massive amounts of hours of training and education through customer success, because then cost of acquisition is high. And so charging, you know, $100 a month or whatever doesn't make any sense in this model. So that is why this is super important. So for the sub account that is used for the SaaS company, we have gone in and we have built a membership section. The membership section has a product, and you could have, like, if you've got 3 plans and 3 different sets of functionality, which, you know, my friend does, then you have 3 different onboarding videos, right, for each product, right? So we have one product, it's called onboarding. Now, if you look at the product, what it essentially is just a step-by-step guide on how to onboard yourself, right? So let's go here, it's brand marketing, start my onboarding journey. Now, if I click that, it's going to take me here. I've got everything here. I've got welcome, mobile app install, integrating Google My Business, Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, Stripe, and PayPal. So this is kind of like the key things, right? And of course, a user would then click on start my onboarding journey. They would watch the video. They would have a whole bunch of information available to them. And then what they do is they mark it complete. Okay. And we're going to be able to track that behavior outside of the tool in 2 ways. So the first way is that, of course, that the customer success team can look at course progress. So they can see new customers, where are they progressing through in their onboarding education material, right? So, when's the last time they logged in? What does their progress look like, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I have to proactively, consciously make the effort to go in and look at this, right? But this doesn't do anything for the user. The user has no idea what their progress is. They just click on the lessons and off they go, right? So we need to be made aware of that. So what we've got is we've got a whole bunch of emails in a folder called onboarding, and it's for each lesson they complete, they get a little incentive to say, well done on completing that lesson, right? So let's have a look at, say, lesson 2, right? So if I did lesson 1 complete, lesson 2 complete, I get an email that looks like this. It was about Google. If I click on this and go to preview, it actually tells me that knows that there's 7 lessons in total. If I've completed 2, it works out to be like 27 point something percent. We rounded it off to 28% through. I get a nice little progress bar here. I've completed lesson 2. Now this is in line with the psychology of gamification. So when you have a new user sign up to an application, there's a couple of things going on, right? You've got FOMO. So, right, if I have this green bar that's showing me that I'm only 28% of the way through, it incentivizes me to get through to 100%, right? Same way when you sign up for LinkedIn Sales Navigator or whatever, it tells you to complete your profile, but it makes it sort of like a fun little game, right? So it's telling you what your progress is. All right, so that's all that is, right? And that is not difficult at all. I think it's just like, it's like 3 lines of code, right? It's just a div with a progress bar. And then all you do is you go into the CSS and then fill it with some custom code, right? And then if it's like, if you've got 10 lessons, right, then it would be 10%. But how do you work that out? Okay, so the progress bar, I just manually set to 28% because I know that this is lesson 2 of 7, right? So pretty straightforward. Nothing is, not rocket science in the slightest here whatsoever. So the user's getting this nice little continual, right, reminder that they're getting, they're progressing through, right? And of course, so what we do is we replicate that through 7 lessons. And then in our automation, we create a folder called onboarding. And in that folder, we've got lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4, lesson 5, lesson 6, right? So all of those are tracking when we complete the lesson. Now, there is no trigger in HighLevel for completing a lesson. Don't know why. 0 clue why, right? But so what I had to do each lesson was a category, right? And then so what we can do is we can have a trigger to say, cool, when we've completed that category, which just happens to contain 1 lesson, then go and do this, right? So then what I do is I do a lead score or a lead scoring type mechanism to say, cool, let's add 1 to a custom field called last onboarding lesson completed. And essentially all I'm doing is I'm tallying the number of lessons that a new user can complete. So if that's 5 at some point in the near future, it immediately tells me at a glance what level of engagement they had with the course, because I can see that number, right? It's not just an arbitrary value, it's a meaningful value that I can take action on. Of course, I can go into my contacts area and run a report and say, show me everybody that's 5 or less, right? Because they haven't completed the last remaining lessons, and maybe we need to do something with them and whatever, right? So 1 number, 1 metric, but extremely powerful and actionable in the way that we measure digitally the progress of onboarding new SaaS customers. So that's what we do here. we do a math operation that's an internal operation that we're doing. Then we do an email and we say, hey, well done on completing the first lesson. And then we tag them and say they started the lesson, right? They started, right? So now we know that there was a starting point in which they enrolled and started. And then we need to know what happens beyond that, right? And so we send an internal notification to all the staff. And of course, this could just be the customer success team's distribution list or whatever, to say, hey, these guys have already completed one, which was the mobile app installation. And here's their details, right? Just FYI, right? Like, you can never communicate enough. Replicate that through all of the lessons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're golden, right? So then what we can do is we can create like a little list, right? So we can say, okay, well, show me in my contact lists everybody that's during, that's in an onboarding phase, right? And so everybody that started will appear in this list. And if you look at the columns, and I don't have anybody that started onboarding in this session right now, but one of the columns is that number. So that score is going to be in this list. And of course, it would demo a lot better if I actually had some data, but I don't. So sue me. But so the last onboarding session completed just means, how many lessons have they completed, right? So at a glance, when they're in this smart list, I can get a nice, they call it like a 30,000 foot view of where everybody's at. Okay. And then I've also got this concept of an at-risk register, which I'll come to in just a minute. But let's go back to our automations. So now, how do we actually get someone who signs up for SaaS enrolled in your membership, right? Easy to do, but not straightforward, right? So let's, again, go back to the agency view, because that's where the products exist, right? So we've got, in our SaaS configurator, we've got 3 plans: basic, advanced, and premium. I want to know at a glance of all the users that sign up with me for my software, who's on basic, who's on advanced, and who's on premium. And then within that customer segmentation, how far along their onboarding journey they are. So this is exactly what I'm empowering a customer success team to do that's selling HighLevel as SaaS. Now, I'm speaking a million miles an hour today because there's too much to cover in such a short period of time. So I do apologize for that. But let's keep going. So how do we do this? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the automation, and we're going to see that the first thing we need to do is we need to know, right, that the way which you enroll someone into a product that's a membership product, essentially like the learning management system, all right, can be a little bit complicated and convoluted, is to create an offer. And what you do is you create a free offer. So because there's no connection between them checking out in Stripe in products that exist in the SaaS configurator and the sub account, unless you make it an order form with the same product as in Stripe within that sub account, right? So that's the only way that you know that a contact record in that sub account is a SaaS customer at all, right? Otherwise, they don't get created in your sub account. They get created in their own sub account as the user of that sub account, right? If that makes sense. So here's what we've got to do. So onboarding. So what we did is, so we've got our sort of like, progress tracker. That's great. And then we've got the onboarding section. So this is just this purely here to split out the fact that they bought SaaS, right? And then which one did they buy, right? So if you have a look at the details, I go, well, they submitted an order and then I didn't go further than that in the trigger. And then I've got a condition, which is multiple branch condition, right? So multiple embedded if statement to say, well, if the product was premium, tag them as premium, or if it was advanced, tag them as advanced, premium, etc. That gives me the ability to split it out into 3 segmentations. And then I can say, cool, well, if they've signed up for that, grant them access to the onboarding product, right? Now, if you want to create a subset of courses that belong to different plans, which is a great idea, by the way, go and do that. So you might have like 3 lessons in the basic one, which is just about two-way text, missed call text back, Google My Business, and then on the other 2 plans, you're selling more stuff. So there's more lessons in that, right? Whatever you want to do, right? But at least it gives you that ability now to instantly segment your user base based on the plan that they bought. And then we just chuck them in a tag, right? So we go the basic plan tag for this one, blah, 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 right? And then, of course, what that's going to allow us to do is go into the contacts area and we're going to come in here as an administrator and we're going to say, okay, well, if someone's got the tag, right, basic, we could turn that into a smart list and we say basic plan members, right? Or subscribers or whatever you want to call, right? And so then I can flick between all of my basics, advanced and premiums with one click based on the tag that they have, based on what they bought. So that's instantly being able to filter out your user base based on the plan that they're on at the time that they purchased. Now, I'm sure HighLevel will probably do something at the agency level for you to be able to navigate through that data at some point, but they haven't right now, so that's the workaround, okay? Okay, back to the automation. Let's look at the other section. So then the other part of this is, well, we're not just going to leave people to their own devices. We want to bug them if we realize that they've started their onboarding, but then they haven't done anything for a couple of days, right? So in addition to them getting their own emails when they complete a lesson, we're going to say, cool, well, if they started the onboarding and then we wait 2 days, and I'm supposed to have that as 2, and then they did nothing, I'm going to check that value, right? So remember, I'm doing a math operation to give me a total number of lessons completed. So I'm going to say, look, if they've only completed 2 lessons or less, there's like one of 2 or 3 things going on here, right? One, they don't care about the lessons. They already know enough and they've just gone and integrated everything themselves. They've got Stripe, they've got PayPal, they've done it all, but they didn't have to bother with the lesson, right? So maybe that is the case. If that is the case, like a power user, you probably want to know about that. But the most likely scenario is they started to do the onboarding, someone made them a coffee, their child reached out to them and wanted to, be put to bed or something, and so they went off and did something else. So, if you've ever signed up for Slack or LinkedIn or any of those things, right, they know when you're not active, right? And so this is exactly the same. It's not true in that, we're tracking user activity, login activity, because again, can't do that. Agency level doesn't have sub-account functionality. But this at least gives us the ability to go, well, I haven't completed any of the additional onboarding lessons that they were meant to. So if the value is 2 or less, and less arbitrary, I don't know why I chose that. I kind of like the 2 first things are really easy, right? Like you've got send me the mobile app link, and then I go and download it from the App Store. And then you've got Google My Business integration. So it's like 1 click, sign into Google, off we go. The other ones are more detailed, more complicated. Facebook, then you got to go Instagram, then you got to enable DMs for Instagram, then you got to go TikTok, might not have TikTok, might not want to use Stripe, but have Stripe, PayPal. I don't even use PayPal, right? So all of those ones are extra levels of complexity and they might need help with them, right? So you get to this point and you think, okay, well, you didn't go beyond lesson 2. Should we send them an email? And we go, yes, we should, right? And so this one is, again, on a template. And that one says, we noticed, you haven't done anything beyond lesson 2. Do you need help? Here's a time to book for customer success. And then we wait another 2 days and we wait another 2 days, right? So again, the time in which to bug them to say like, hey, there was an intent here that you were going to do something. You had already started, but then you dropped off. Like that's the time that you need to be professionally persistent, otherwise known as harassing the shit out of them, right? So that's that. So all of that happens like this. And then the last thing to this is a true customer success team needs to know who to leave alone and who to pay attention to. So what I've said here is if they've completed less than 2 lessons or like 2 or less lessons, right? After, what is it like? So 2, 4, 6 days, then I'm going to tag them as at risk. So there's a concept in most tech companies that they have an at-risk register. Anything where there's a monthly recurring revenue model, which means monthly subscribers, churn is one of those metrics that is North Star, and they always want to be reducing that number down. So North Star metrics being something that they just focus on and always work towards, and every activity in the business works towards either increasing or decreasing those metrics, right? So net churn reduction or churn is something that you want to reduce, and the way you do that is you have a way of figuring out who needs attention or who's at risk of churning, and then rolling out the red carpet and giving those people the attention that they deserve. So a very quick way of employing this type of strategy in HighLevel is, hey, well, if they've gone to onboard themselves and they've done nothing for 6 days, let's tag them as at risk and then send an internal notification to everybody to say, these guys could be at risk based on the low adoption in the week since signing up. And then, of course, that gives us the ability to go, let's look at the at-risk register this week. Hey, John Smith, he's on the at-risk register this week. Let's call him up and say, hey, it's customer success. Notice you haven't done anything. Are we wrong? You've actually done it all. Blah, 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 blah. Have the conversation, right? Be proactive. And of course, that then is going to increase your chances that they don't churn and they do onboard themselves, and then you have a happy customer that pays you, multiple months of monthly recurring revenue in their lifetime value, right? Okay. The last thing that is important to look at here is how people actually get enrolled into the onboarding lessons. Now, so you saw in the workflow that you grant them access to the offer, right? And so what we've said is if they go and buy our SaaS product, then they get access to the offer. So what they're going to get is they're going to get 2 emails. They're going to get the first email, which is, welcome to Brand on Marketing in this case. Your username and password is blah, log in, do stuff, right? Then the second email, I should say, is going to look like this. So if we go down here, and this happens automatically, right? And we click on offer, click, and then now granted access to the onboarding, they're going to get this email, and that looks like this. Glad to have you here. Brand on Marketing onboarding. Here's my login. And of course, I can then choose that, log in, and click great. So then it's going to take me to my area, Brand on Marketing, cool. And I'm going to have this side by side, right? So the idea is that I've got my application open over there, and I've got this open on another screen or in a different window. And then I click here, and it's like, cool, let's start. And then I go, oh, that's awesome. And I go mark complete when I've finished that one. And on it goes. Okay, so that, because there's a lot of content, takes forever. It's now 3:00 p.m. started at 9 o'clock, but one day, considering you could probably amplify this and go beyond activation and customer success in terms of that critical time period in which you need to have engagement and activation sorted in a business that relies on product-led growth, but then extend that out to voice of customer, right? So advocacy programs, if someone's going through all the lessons and they're marking them complete and is telling you that they're super happy, that would be a time to say, hey, leave us a review over here. It would also be a time to say, hey, notice that you're doing really well. If you refer us to 3 friends, they all sign up, we'll give you $100 off your subscription or whatever, or run an affiliate program. And so you could say, well, if they reach a threshold level of score in the onboarding of this, enroll them into the affiliate program automatically, blah, 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 right? So there's a whole bunch of VOC stuff that you could do off the back of something like this. Okay, so that's it. As I said, this is a snapshot now after I've built it, because really it's just like a bunch of email templates. It's a membership. There are a bunch of white label videos. So in this, there's stuff that we built specifically for the brand, but there are a whole bunch of white label installs. So you got mobile app install, Google, and you can see the owner of this particular company is on the decals and things. But if you went into, say, the detail of this, the Stripe video, that Stripe video is white label and doesn't talk about HighLevel at all as the brand name. So you could either do your own videos and brand them, or you could white label these videos. I have these videos because I made them. So again, I freely give them out because, I don't care. So off you go. I think it's pretty cool. Love to know your thoughts and comments. If you are interested in this as a snapshot, let me know by commenting below. Please send me the snapshot or whatever. And if you've got feedback for me, constructive feedback, please let me know. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.